The Glassweaver's Tale and Other Stories by Riddihough. Needle and Groove. Consciousness returns with a jolt. A peculiar and unpleasant grating noise accompanies the nightmare image of severed arms. The vision trembles, sublimates, and then is gone, along with the rest of the now-forgotten dream. I hesitate. Opening my eyes reveals nothing more sinister than the fine detail of a woven rug, although what, exactly, I am doing lying on the floor, I cannot say. Embarrassed, I struggle to my feet, finding myself stiff and a little unstable. Thankfully, there's no one around to observe my discomfort. I'm in someone's dining room, but for the life of me, I can't remember whose. I find its familiarity vaguely disturbing. A black Labrador appears from the doorway and comes padding across the rug, tail wagging. Molly? My breath catches in my throat. Kneeling down, I read the name on the collar and then stare at the dog in disbelief. Molly rubs her nose against my leg. This can't be. I look at my hand where it rests against her head. You died decades ago. What a strange, bittersweet moment. I'm not sure whether to laugh or cry. This is surely a hoax. Molly puts her paw on my knee and licks my face, just like she used to in my younger days, when she was still alive. Oh, Molly. I have to blink away the tears. I hug her. What is going on? On my knees with Molly clutched in my arms, I feel something in my jacket dig uncomfortably into my ribs. Slipping a hand into the inner pocket, I pull out, of all things, a pistol. This is just a little too much. I sit down at the dining table and stare at the weapon. A gun? What in the hell's name is a gun doing in my pocket? I search the other pocket and find a cheap plastic cigarette lighter. I don't smoke. Never have. Molly rests her chin on my thigh. I shake my head in bewilderment. What's next, old girl? As if in answering, there's a sound from above. Footsteps. Molly tenses. Panicked, I fumble the gun back into my pocket, not knowing what else to do with it. Before I can stand up, a young man appears at the foot of the stairs opposite, barefooted, dressed in a t-shirt and blue jeans and holding a mug of what smells like coffee. Damn! He gapes in surprise, spilling a splash of the coffee down the front of his t-shirt. If the gun and lighter make no sense, and Molly's existence seems inexplicable, the sight of this young man is simply unbelievable, and leaves me frozen to my core. He is, after all, myself. Richard McGill, only much, much younger. Who the hell are you? He demands, trying to wipe the coffee stains away. I stare back, slack-jawed, completely speechless. And what the hell are you doing here, in my house? He continues, eyeing me cautiously, as if I might do something unpredictable. I find my voice and croak, I don't know. Then, I remember with a sudden jarring shock. I have traveled here from the future to do something of the utmost importance. The thought is both profoundly frightening and deeply exhilarating, and leaves me shaken and even more confused. He scrutinizes my face, frowning. Do I know you? You look familiar. You're from the university? No, not exactly. I manage in a slightly steadier voice, still trying to gather my scattered wits. He considers me pensively. I should probably ask you to leave. Yeah, of course. Please, give me a moment. My mind is in turmoil. Something, but I don't know what, has gone terribly awry. Something to do with my research. His research. I have a premonition of danger. But from where? The gun is an uncomfortable weight in my pocket. My younger self looks down at his coffee mug, then back at me. Okay, but before you go, you better tell me who you are. Adding coldly, just in case. He sits down opposite me, leaning forward, elbows on the table, as if intent on carrying out an interrogation. I falter. Doesn't he recognize me? Have I changed so much in the intervening decades? But I'm struck by a much more urgent concern. Your project on the theoretic analysis of Needle of Time? The Needle of Time? You mean the arrow of time. Well, your work would more accurately describe the arrow as a needle traveling in a groove. He's visibly taken aback. Yeah, that's right, it would. But that work is just private notes and calculations. It isn't at the proposal stage yet. He looks as confused as I feel. I was thinking that DARPA might fund the idea. Then his eyes narrow. How the hell do you know about it? I'm almost overwhelmed by relief. I am not too late after all. There is still time. The notes and calculations, I have to get a hold of them. I am not sure why, but there's an odd gap in my short-term memory. But these notebooks are critical. I remember I always kept them on my bedside table. How do I know about your research? I just do, I reply lamely. What do you mean, just do? Rich scrutinizes me intensely, brows knotted together. I do know you. There's a look of consternation on his face. I know you, he whispers, and his expression shifts rapidly from puzzlement to astonished apprehension and then to complete comprehension. He stands abruptly, his chair tipping over backward. He almost falls over it. Molly barks her concern, looking between us. Oh my God! He clutches his chest with one hand and his head with the other. You're me! His eyes widen, jaw drops. It works! He stares at me in awestruck disbelief. Impossible. It does work. He can't keep his eyes off me, breathing as if he's been running hard. I must get my notes right away. He runs up the stairs and returns a moment later, clutching a pile of dog-eared notes. My heart leaps at the sight of them. Those are the notebooks that I kept by the bed, the ones I must have. He spills them haphazardly on the table and opens several, flicking through the pages impatiently. They're filled with my early work, much of it done in the depths of the night. Reams of scrawled equations in spidery handwriting, comments scribbled in the margins. Here, this is the problem. He jabs his finger at a series of exponential diamphittine equations that were one of the early attempts to define a complex algebraic surface representation of the arrow of time. I thought that it was a dead end, yet if you exist, the limits to the bounds, they can't tend to infinity. The plane is more than a series of grooves, and time more accurately described as a needle. Then he looks at me, startled. But why am I bothering? His expression becomes one of anguish. You know all the answers already. I'm oddly affected by my younger self's bitter disconsolation. So much ambition, I cannot suppress a grin. You've already made a critical breakthrough. You were, till a moment ago, merely unaware of that fact. He shakes his head. Bemused and wretched, I press on. You define the geometric bounds of the arrow of time, and this leads you to the critical insight. I wince and suffer a momentary disorientation as a trench of memories seem to reinsert themselves into consciousness. Time running like a needle in the groove of an old-fashioned vinyl LP record, the past a previous, more exterior groove, the future a more interior groove. His face is a mask of concentration. If so, then the parallel timelines of the multiverse would have to be stacked orthogonally, directly above and below the current timeline stretching away into infinity. Yes, exactly as your analogy. You mean your analogy. He smiles bravely. At least, in this timeline. I wave his objection away. A trivial detail. You show how it's possible to make the needle skip laterally from one groove to the next by interfering with the logic of causality. But because time, like the groove on the record, is curved toward the future, the needle, under the force of temporal inertia, can only skip into the past. Never into the future? Never. He nods and grimaces, trying to keep up with the ruthless logic of our discovery. But doesn't that mean that if there is a sufficiently large disruption of causality, the needle could skip orthogonically rather than laterally away from the four-dimensional surface of this timeline and into the present of an alternate timeline? Something about this revelation unnerves me, and I look away, not wanting to acknowledge the veracity of his insight. He doesn't seem to notice. Continuing, neighboring timelines differ only in small details from the present timeline. Slight changes in the melody, but not the whole song. Yes, further away, and we dance to the different tune. He laughs, a boyish, delighted laugh. All of this, it really is all there in my notebooks? I nod, and he reaches across the table to grip my hand. It's all real, isn't it? There's wonder on his face, and yet I cannot meet his gaze. Still, the moment crackles with electricity. Yes, it is. My unease passes, and I am taken by his enthusiasm. More than that, we build a device that allowed me to jump from a future groove into this one. Good God, of course! Where is it? He looks around the living room, expectantly. It only exists in the future. There's a bitter disappointment on Rich's face, then puzzlement. the future. But if the needle can only ever skip into the past on the timeline or the present on an alternate timeline, then how do you get back to the future? How do I get back? I don't know. Rich is still working through the ramifications of our discovery. Clearly, your being here is on its own not enough to disrupt causality in the present, even though we constitute a classical temporal paradox. His knot's brow. Perhaps you have not damaged the groove of the present timeline sufficiently yet to skip the needle out of its track? Yes, you might be right. I agree. Frustrated, I cannot tell him the answer, even though this information exists somewhere in his mind. But there is something else. He knots his brows together. In your analogy, when the surface of a record is sufficiently badly damaged, it will repeat, over and over, endlessly. If you, through some action, cause a significant discontinuity in the logic of causality, wouldn't you do exactly the same? Create a segment in this timeline that keeps repeating itself like a scratch on a real vinyl record? Rich watches me, anxiously. I stare at him. Yes, that's right. From the moment I appeared here to the moment I precipitate a discontinuity, that segment would cycle round and around. He presses on, pursing the idea to the bitter end. Then, by coming back here, aren't you in danger of trapping yourself inside a temporal loop? Am I? He's right. I am in ever-present danger of being caught in a loop. Some unwitting action on my part that interferes substantially with the future and the integrity of the groove we are in will be lost. I have no prior memory of waking up on the dining room floor, or of anything else that follows, and yet the dream of my severed arm. Remembering the arm, I shiver. It was crudely amputated at the shoulder. I can see the bloody ragged stump on my mind's eye. Doubts come crowding in, like shadows in the dark. I must have known this would happen. If so, why would you place yourself in such a perilous situation? Once again, my skin prickles with a premonition of disaster. I stare at my younger self. I don't know. Am I in danger? In the future? And have taken refuge in the past? Or perhaps you are in danger, here in the past, and I have come to warn you from the future? I concentrate, trying to draw out the logic of the situation. Either way, I have a feeling something bad is going to happen. I just can't remember what. Why? Rich insists. Why not? I seem to be suffering from some form of temporal amnesia. I know the memories are all there. I just can't quite draw them up into my conscious mind. Then... Wait! A different thought has occurred to me. If you're still at the university and yet to secure DARPA funding, this must be my parents' old summer house by the sea. Yes, they don't use it very often, so I can... My heart leaps. Mom and Dad are still alive? Of course, what of it? Oh my God. Where's your screen? I must call them. Rich fumbles his screen out of his pocket and is about to hand it over when he pauses. Wait a minute. If you're in danger, or I am, won't you be revealing your location by contacting them? And if whomever is a danger to you knows you're with me, won't they then know that I know about the danger too? Won't you be putting yourself and me in even more danger? He's right. Still, I hold my hand out to him. Give me the screen. Look, until you better understand the danger we are in, would it be safe to give me the screen? Reluctantly, Rich hands it over. I hope you know what you're doing. I find the number and make the call. The connection rings once, twice, then, hello, dear. This is an unexpected pleasure. Mom. There is a painful lump in my throat. I can hardly speak. I haven't heard her voice in over 15 years. Mom. What is it, love? I hope the boiler isn't playing up again. Did you remember to get Florentine to come round and check it? His number is... Mom. I love you, Mom. I struggle to prevent my voice from cracking. I miss you. So much. Well, really, that's lovely, but you could make a little bit more of an effort to come over and see us sometimes, darling. We aren't so very far away, and you know how your father hates traveling. Dad? Is Dad there? No, he's... There's a click, and a brief hiss of static obscuring Mom's voice. And Ray, fishing. Shall I get him to call you when he gets back? No. I'll call back. Later. All right, darling. Well, lovely to hear from you, and do get Florentine to look at the boiler. Yeah. But the connection has been cut. I look at the screen. There was so much I wanted to say. Perhaps later. Rich is watching me. Well? You were right. The connection was fished. Rich rolls his eyes and shakes his head in an I-told-you-so gesture. I ignore him. We are going to have to leave, immediately. The sense of danger is heightened still further by the memories of severed arm, blood pooling around in a tarmac. I wonder again about the pistol in my pocket. Is it for my defense? Defense against whom? I have never fired a gun in anger. Correction. I have never fired a gun at all. Look, I think you owe me. Rich starts, stubbornly. I cut him short. There's no time. It must be the expression on my face, the look of barely suppressed panic in my eyes. He raises his hand and says irritably, all right, but I'm coming with you. I need an explanation. Yes, fine, of course. I say, I'm going to need your help, although I am not quite sure how or why yet. And bring those too, all of them. I point to the notebooks. I try to visualize the bedside table. How many notebooks were there, stacked under the reading light? I am not sure why, but it is vital to have all of them. Still, they are as much his as mine, so I must be careful. I let Rich gather up the notebooks while trying not to watch too closely. He whistles Molly to his side. Once I'm sure he got them all, I hurry ahead into the garage. There's the old battered Ford Bronco I used to own. Rich unlocks the car. Keys, wallet, notebooks, dog leash. Molly's claws scrabble on the metal doorframe as she climbs in. No leash. Damn it! Hold on a sec. He runs back into the house. I count the dog-eared notebooks. 7. Was that how many there were by the bed? I scour my still-healing mind. Yes, I am sure that there were only 7. And they are all here, on the back seat, next to Molly. Good. Very good. For a brief moment, I am able to relax. We drive away along the bumpy track that curves into the woods above. Dark clouds are massing in the sky. Lightning flickers in their laden interior, and thunder reverberates as the first heavy raindrops slap against the window screen. Why isn't it safe for you here in the past? Rich asks, concentrating on the way ahead. I grit my teeth, forcing myself to remember. I have surely committed a crime in coming here secretly on my own. In doing so, I must have broken contract with people very much more powerful than I am. Ruthless people, who would care nothing at all if they had to kill me. There's no turning back from whatever path I have committed myself to. Why I have put myself in such terrible danger. This I don't understand. Right, at this moment, I feel very afraid and very alone. They'll be coming after me. I calm the trembling in my hands and force myself to breathe slowly and deeply. They? Who? People from the future? Yes. I put my hand in my jacket pocket with the intention of showing the weapon to Rich. My fingers touch the grip of the handle. I'm about to pull it out, but something makes me stop. If you're in danger from whoever is chasing you, then surely I must now be in danger too. The fact that we are together means that we are both at risk. I stare ahead grimly at the rain. Rich also is in danger from my pursuers? No, for some reason I don't think so. They want me, not him. But he is in danger. From what, though? Something still remains hidden from me, something vitally important, the identity of my pursuers? I don't know. I let my hand fall from my pocket, thinking, he can find out about the gun later. It seems that one of the side effects of time travel is the form of temporary amnesia. I am only gradually recalling the circumstances that bring me here. I hope you remember before they find us, Rich says in earnest. I think to myself, so do I. The woods open into a grassland, and the track joins the road that leads to a nearby town. We wind our way through the hills, their peaks hidden in roiling clouds. Finally, the town emerges from a gap in the downpour. Rich pulls into a charging station. Battery needs boosting. There's a cafe there. He points over the road. You can pick up some breakfast for us. Rich climbs out of the car, shuts the door. Rain is shearing down again. My younger self is working the booster booth, his back to the car. The cafe is no more than a blurry outline. I look at the notebooks, lick my lips. I am gripped by an intense desire to burn them to ash. Is that what the lighter is for? I could reach it back behind me, take them, and disappear into the rain. But what would be the point? They are only of historical value to me, and Rich already knows the solution to the problem of time travel. My presence here is giving that away. Rich pulls the car door open. Credit. I need credit. He digs around for a screen. Are you going to get that food or not? I nod. Sure, of course. As I hurry across the road, the weight of the gun makes my jacket feel conspicuously lopsided. There's a cop ahead of me in the queue buying donuts. He eyes me coolly. I tell myself not to smile at him as I get the order of coffee and sandwiches, all the time trying to hide the bulge of the gun under my arm. Adjusting its position in my jacket, my fingers encounter something I hadn't noticed before, tucked behind the gun. A little folded square of paper. I pull it out for a quick look. It has my name on the outer leaf in my handwriting. I guess what it is immediately. This is how I must overcome the amnesia. A note to myself torn from a page in one of my notebooks. I do not dare unfold it to see what is written inside. Instead, I shove it back into my pocket and smile at the cop. His eyes narrow and his expression hardens. Belted by raindrops, I hurry back to the car. Rich is passing his screen to the charge station attendant inside her kiosk. He asks her something and she points to the side of the repair shop. Rich nods and heads off, jogging quickly through the rain. I watch him until he is out of sight, and then retrieve the little folded square of paper. It's smudged with fingerprints and torn along the folds as if it has passed through many hands. I stare at it with growing horror. Am I already trapped in a loop of my own work warned of? Have I read whatever is written in this note scores, if not hundreds of times before? My shoulders sag. Is there a place, somewhere in the near future, where causality and the temporal surface, this reality, has so badly damaged that needle of time jumps back to the point of my appearance in the past? Another fear comes to me. Am I a victim of the break, condemned by the forces ranged against me to forever repeat the loop that I am caught in? Or do I break causality and bring this fate upon myself? A piece of knowledge from the future falls back into place in my mind. Each cycle of the temporal loop causes both temporally short-term amnesia and the slow, irreparable degradation of long-term memory. If I'm in a loop, how many more cycles do I have before I can remember nothing at all of the past and lose all agency over my own life? Sitting there in the car, holding the little scrap of paper, I feel trapped by forces I cannot see. I don't want to know what the note says, and still I unfold it. There are 2 words written in my hurried scrawl. Kill yourself. The car door slams and I almost jump out of my skin. Rich is climbing into the seat beside me. I slip the note back into my pocket. He looks at me, his expression quizzical. What's the matter? You surprised me, I stammer. You look like you've just seen a ghost. I stare straight ahead. We must get going, immediately. Okay, you're in danger, right? So, I'm in danger too. Rich eats as he drives us further north and east, edging away from the sea. I have lost all appetite. Holding my coffee, I gaze out the window at the passing countryside, thinking all the time about the words on the little square of paper. The gun is not for self-defense. I am supposed to use it to kill Rich. The idea is horrific and answers the question of who breaks causality. Me. I must kill my younger self. But what is my intention? Surely not to exist in a perpetual loop, repeating the same segment of time over and over until I have no memory, no mind left at all. Cold sweat prickles my skin as I consider all the note implies. Outside, the outskirts of another small town are passing us by. All right, I think this is as far as I'm going. Rich's voice jolts me out of my fevered reverie. He pulls into the parking lot of a shabby-looking motel. Now, I need a full explanation. I start to protest, but he leaves me standing by the car. I have no choice. I gather the notebooks and follow him as he leads Molly to the hotel reception and then onto the room that he books for us. There, he sits on the bed. In the dimness, his eyes seek out mine, holding my gaze. What does that note say? My blood freezes. What note? The one that you were reading in the Bronco at the charge station and stuffed into your pocket when I got into the car? You turned white. He watches me intently. That note? He nods. Don't bluff. It doesn't suit you. So, I tell him the essence of the note's meaning, not the actual words. I don't know why, but it seems that I must end the research that leads to the discovery of time travel. He looks disbelieving. Are you serious? Yes. Who would send you back to do such a thing? Me. I did. You? The handwriting on the note is mine. Show me, he demands, hand outstretched. No. I back away, notebook still under my arm. His expression is one of anger and bewilderment. Why must you do this? I don't know. Then it hits me, with full force, all the memories that were lost in my desperate flight to the past. It's like a flash grenade going off. Bang! Inside of my head, I stagger, lean against the wall to steady myself. The notebooks fall from my arms and scatter across the floor. Fist to my forehead, I grind my knuckles into my brow, trying to get the pain under control. Why must I do this? I croak, because I will forever be remembered as the creator of the single most devastating weapon ever used against humanity. Panting, I forced back an oily wave of nausea that threatens to engulf me. Whomever gets control of time travel will become a tyrant, inevitably. It doesn't matter whether they start out with good intentions or not. Being able to change the past is the ultimate power anyone can possess. Nothing trumps it. No weapons, no armies, no laws, nothing. The crime confessed brings a moment of catharsis. I breathe deep. The desire to throw up suppressed. When I look up, I see Rich's face is congested with anger. He shakes his head vehemently. I don't believe you. The needle of time and the access it gives us to the past will allow us to rid history of the very tyrants you are so worried about. No, I have already seen how the research will be used. You were right earlier when you said that you'd probably have to go to DARPA for funding. You do. At first. I was. You are. We will be considered as a maverick genius worth investing a miserly pittance in, just to see what might happen. As soon as they realize there is real potential in our analysis of the needle of time, they begin to pump real money into the work. And that is also when the security restrictions start. Just small things at first. But as the money grows, so do the restrictions. Who am I to argue with the source of my ever-increasing largesse? That is, until I realize that I have effectively become a prisoner in my own laboratory. Everything I do is monitored all the time. I am in a constant presence of security detail for my own protection, but in reality to ensure that I don't breathe a word of what I am doing to anyone else. Then how did you get here? Using the one thing I understand so much better than they do. Time travel. I slipped back here from right under their noses. But the time machine remained behind, and they are no fools. They'll be coming. You're running from the government? Our own government? Don't be fooled by flags and badges and titles. Plans are already far advanced to use your invention covertly to reach back in time and neutralize terrorist groups, destabilize unfriendly governments, adjust the balance of power in neutral countries to be more U.S. favorable, to support the U.S. arms trade, and those parts of the civilian economy critical to the military and the government. The list goes on. It is very, very long. What's wrong with that? Don't you see? It's only the beginning. What happens when one political party sees the election of another political party as a security threat to the country? If they are in power and have control of our invention, they simply change history to ensure they stay in power, and I assure you, they would believe what they were doing is right and just. So, you're against going back and preventing 9/11? I shake my head. You're missing the point. Of course, there are many terrible things that could be changed, but who judges what is terrible and what is not? He blurts out, that moral ambiguity might exist in your future, but not in my present. You wouldn't be able to stop the misuse of what you have created. So, you've had a fit of conscience? Become a latter-day Oppenheimer? I'm supposed to give up my research and bury all the preliminary work, is that it? He shakes his head, indicating the scattered notebooks. You can't stop it now. It's too late. I can stop it. I slip my hand into my pocket. I intend to stop it. Molly barks, distracting me. She paws Rich's knee, makes a soft whining sound in her throat. Poor creature, he mutters, distracted for a moment. I forgot all about you. He opens the door, and Molly pushes through the gap and races off across the parking lot before Rich can think of a leash. Damn! Through the chin's curtains is a world of mundane detail. Late afternoon, rain-slicked tarmac, the outskirts of a small town, the parking lot in the front of a motel, the highway beyond. Fast food restaurant on the other side of the road. The rain is less intense now, but low, dark clouds still race across the sky. Molly disappears around the corner of the building. Gray SUV pulls into the parking lot of the fast food restaurant. Two men get out of it and enter the restaurant. Something about them catches my attention, making me frown. Rich is trying to placate me. Look, in the end, we adapt to new technology. It won't be any different this time. A period of transition. Okay, some bad things happen. Then, everything adjusts. A new equilibrium is reached. New laws, new regulations. Same old, same old. He smiles patiently. Think about the alternative. Stifling innovation. Would you condemn the human race to the Stone Age to save us from the sword? I am vehement in my conviction. Time travel isn't just a consequence to the present and the future. It will allow the wholesale rape of history. Clearly, you have no compunctions about changing the past. Rich's voice shakes with indignation. I'm not going to stifle progress. Not for you, not for anyone. It is now that I pull the gun out of my pocket. Rich stands and stumbles back against the bed. Good God! I intend to. I don't want to say the words because they are an admission of utter failure. All those years of work, all that optimism, all that belief, for nothing. But there can be no turning back. To what? Kill me? Are you mad? Am I mad? My palm is slippery with sweat where it grips the gun. Rich is talking fast, his words running into each other. If you kill me, the needle of time will skip back to the moment of your arrival in the dining room, trapping you in the temporal loop of your own creation. You admitted as much yourself. Perhaps it would be fitting punishment for my crime, I suggest sardonically. He shakes his head, ignoring my comment. That can't be what you want. Then a light bulb goes off in his head. You don't want to just disrupt causality. You want to absolutely smash it to smithereens. Of course you do. In your analogy, merely scratching the surface of the vinyl record is no good. You need to snap the record into two. Because if the perturbation is great enough, you will skip the needle on the record onto the alternative timeline, and not merely a neighboring timeline where only small details are different. You need to jump the needle to a more distant timeline, where I don't make a big discovery. He grins maniacally, his eyes blazing. That's why you came back to the summer house, isn't it? Because you need to kill me to skip the needle of time onto another timeline. But why don't you kill me in the moment that you saw me? He ponders for a moment, then laughs coldly. Because you couldn't remember, could you? You didn't know why you came back. There's a reason for the note. Every time you go around the loop, the time to recover your memory must take longer and longer, probably to the point where your memory's going to fail altogether, right? I nod. You are as clever as I remember I was. Yes, this is the gamble I have taken, trapping myself into a temporal loop in the hopes that I can then disrupt causality to make the needle of time jump orthogonically into the more remote timeline where I do not discover the theory of the needle of time, and access this gives us to the past. But think of this, Rich. I don't want to kill you, just your ideas. There's movement beyond the curtains. The two men whom I saw entering the fast food restaurant moments before are now standing on the grassy verge of the road. One of them is kneeling down and petting Molly. They are both wearing sunglasses. In the rain, I curse out loud. I can see the man petting Molly is reading the name tag on her collar. He nods. They start scanning the nearby parking lot. I know what they're looking for. The Bronco. Rich follows my gaze. Across the road, a third man wearing sunglasses is emerging from a gray SUV, holding his finger to his ear and nodding. He walks casually across the road to join the two men with Molly. Those men out there are here to stop you, Rich is saying, backing away from me toward the door. That's right, isn't it? If they kill you, the future and my inventions are safe from your madness. I should call them here, now, before you can do anything stupid. One of the men tries to shoo Molly away, but she thinks it's a game, circling around them. When she comes close enough, another of the men kicks her. She bounds off, stops a small distance away, barking loudly. The three men ignore her. They survey the motel and surrounding area. At the spoken command, they separate. Molly, bristling, takes a lunge at the man who kicked her. He skips aside and turns and points something at her, and she is knocked violently backwards before he disappears into the reception office on the other wing of the motel. The other two men have disappeared out of view in the other direction, toward the end of our block at the motel rooms. Rich peers around the open door and sees Molly lying motionless, head twisted unnaturally onto her back. He cries out, and the gun, my threat, forgotten, runs from the room and across the motel parking lot toward her. I already know there is nothing that he can do. Instead, I pick up the notebooks and dump them into the motel room trash can and search for a lighter in my jacket pocket. I pause for only the briefest of instances. All my work, everything I have lived for, does it all have to be destroyed? I suffer a moment's profound regret and then set the books alight. Their existence in this timeline cannot be allowed to contaminate the infinity of other timelines. For good measure, I throw the cheap plastic lighter in too. I step quickly up to the door and cautiously look outside. To my right, one of the doors is open at the far end of our row of motel rooms. I can hear raised voices, the sound of protestation. There's a muffled whump behind me as the lighter explodes in the burning trash can. Ahead, Across the parking lot, Rich is kneeling down, touching Molly's coat. I can see his fingers come away red. I run across the tarmac and grab him by the shoulder. Listen to me. You know how this must work. As long as I'm alive when... I swallow hard, forcing my words out. When your life ends, the needle must skip, because you cannot be dead if I am alive. We have a little chance it will skip into another timeline where... You've gone mad. Something has happened that has driven you insane. You yourself have admitted the act of time travel affects your memory, your brain. Perhaps you've lived through so many repetitions of this moment that you've become deranged. Then his face clouds and he looks down at Molly, suddenly less certain than before. Or perhaps it is something they have done to you. I don't know. You know what I'm saying is true. About time's groove? Yes. The rest? He shakes his head. No. You have to believe me. Why would I believe you? How else can you explain my presence here? I point the gun at the SUV. And them. They intend to kill me to ensure that I cannot kill you. If they succeed and you live, the discovery of time travel is assured. I plead. You have to understand. Why? He recoils from my touch. So that you can murder me with a clear conscience? I finally understand the full implications of my return to the past. The only thing that can happen to me here is that I die. Either they kill me and you live, in which case they win, or I kill you first, but in doing so, I kill myself. Of course, that was the real meaning of the note. Kill yourself. So, to win, I always die. I came back to the past knowing this, but if I can kill you before they kill me and the needle skips orthogonically out of this temporal groove and into another, you, at least, will live on in that groove. Rich stares at me, his expression grim and haggard. And what if I discover the needle of time is that parallel timeline? I have the notebooks. I burnt them. He taps his temple. They're all here. Don't you see? Even so, if you discover the needle of time, you will arrive at the same point in the future where I realize the implications of what I have done, and you will come back into your own past and kill yourself too. Why? If you die and I do not, I just have to ensure that I don't suffer the same crisis of conscience as you in the future, and time travel will be safe once again. I shake my head. No, you know the truth. It's right there, at your feet. He looks down at the dog, lying broken on the wet tarmac. That's why. Rich scoops up Molly in his arms, the dog's head dangling limply, dark blood splattered all over her coat, soaking into Rich's coffee-stained t-shirt. He says bitterly, "Why did they have to do this to her? She's only a dog." I took my younger self by the shoulder, because they know they can do whatever they want and there will be absolutely no consequences. I touch Molly's nearly severed head where it rests in his hands. I tell him she should have been put to sleep by the vet 6 years from now. Rich looks at me, his expression twisted between disgust and grief. Please, believe me, I never intended for this to happen. The past and never being the same again, I didn't think about what my work meant. You must understand. I have to do this. Rich's reply is cut short by a scream. The motel receptionist appears in the shadows and slumps to her knees. She sways for a moment, clutching a bloody hole in her chest, then pitches onto her face. Dead. One of the men in sunglasses comes out of the darkness behind her. He stops, taken aback by the sight of us standing in the middle of the parking lot. Then, moving quickly, he raised a peculiar-looking gun and fires it. A bright light goes off, and someone seems to be shouting my name, and then I'm lying on my back on the ground, dazed. Rich is staring down at me, a look of horror on his face. I smile, bewildered. My left arm is numb. I try to raise myself up on my elbows, but I'm oddly unbalanced and fall back onto the tarmac. When I look up, Rich is grappling with one of the men in sunglasses. In the corner of my eye, I glimpse something lying a little distance away from me. It's a human arm, severed at the shoulder, pale flesh splattered red. I remember it from my dream, and realize that it must be mine, although it makes no sense that it is not attached to my shoulder. I'm gripped by a fierce desire to retrieve it, but before I can move, someone falls on top of me. I squirm clumsily out from underneath the weight and see Rich holding the peculiar-looking gun, pointing it down at the man in sunglasses who is lying next to me. He starts to get up. "I'll kill you!" he screams. "Don't doubt it!" The man in the sunglasses hesitates, nods, and then lunges at Rich. There's a peculiar and unpleasant grinding sound that puts my teeth on edge. When I look again, The man is in two parts, sundered in half, his torso lying on its back, the sunglasses gone from his face, eyes staring up the sky, his mouth open, raindrops falling unheeded into it. The two other men in sunglasses come into view. "Put the gun down," one of them calls calmly. They spread out. I'm starting to feel tired and cold. "You're safe now. Put down the gun," one of them says to Rich. "Is he dead?" the other asks. I wonder vaguely. "Dead? Who?" "He's still alive," the first man replies. "Finish him off." "Don't move," Rich yells and kneels down beside me. He's moving the peculiar-looking gun from side to side, saying, "If you so much as blink." There is a reply, but I can no longer make out the words. Something touches my face. Rich's hand is on my cheek. I look up and whisper, "I'm cold. Could you find me a blanket?" He smiles thinly, the gun moving back and forth, back and forth. Voice barely audible, I say, "Don't worry. They daren't kill you. I burnt the notebooks already." "I know. You told me." "Yeah, that's right. I did." With his hand free, he pulls my jacket closed. "There." Looking away, he shouts, "Back across the road and into the car. Both of you. Now." He then turns back to me. "Lie still. Here, hold my hand. This isn't the first time, is it?" The image of my severed arm is burned into my memory. Nothing will ever unscramble that. I whisper, "No, it isn't." Rich manages a grim smile. "I bet you say that every time." I am finding it difficult to breathe and start to shiver uncontrollably. I can't feel my lips anymore. He looks away, behind him, yelling, "In the fucking car!" Then, "Drive!" He fires the gun once, twice, 3 times, the grinding noise making me clench my jaw, and then returns his gaze to me. "There'll be more of them, won't there? Reinforcements?" I nod. "I'm afraid." I squeeze his hand and whisper, "Of what?" "Of letting you go. If this is the moment the needle skips out of the groove, and not merely into the past, only I will make it to the next place. You'll be gone. I want time to get to know you better." There are tears on his cheeks. Slowly, he raises the gun to his head, pushing the odd bell-shaped muzzle into his temple. My jaw clenches involuntarily, and it is several seconds before I am able to free it and speak. "Don't worry. So far, we've only ever jumped into the past." I gasp for breath. "So, chances are, I'll see you again. Very soon. And we'll have to do this all again. Remember not to spill your coffee this time, huh?" I try to smile. Rich leans closer. His fingers are white from gripping the gun. He says, "Ready?" There's a peculiar and unpleasant grinding sound that sets my teeth on edge. It wakes me up. I lie there, gradually become aware of the bedroom in my parents' old summer house by the sea. The fragments of a dream scatter, just beyond my grasp. Instinctively, I reach for something on the bedside table. There is nothing there. Only the old reading lamp. What had I been expecting? Notebooks? What notebooks? I have the peculiar sense of memory loss, although of what, I cannot say. I can hear movement downstairs. Through half-closed eyes, I see the door open, and Molly noses her way into the bedroom. She puts her chin on the side of the bed and watches me while I pretend to sleep, still vainly chasing shards of the lost dream. It was as if I had met a ghost who stole something from me, but then sacrificed itself to give me something even more valuable. Finally, I give up, smile at her, and, letting her climb up on the bed, give her a hug. I have the strangest dream, as if the future is an open book, waiting for me to make it what I will.